Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to present my final project, which is about the story we made in the project part 2. So let's begin. The title of the story is To Trade or Not to Trade. This article was about NAFTA agreement. So first, the characters in the story are the three main countries that form the NAFTA, which are Canada, USA, and Mexico. And lastly, the farmers and workers that work in the factories that the NAFTA managed to bring to Mexico. So let's first give a little context about the NAFTA agreement. So in the business area, experts and people must have known or have heard about the NAFTA agreement, which is one of the most important trade agreements in the Americas. It was implemented in 1994 to encourage trade between the US, Mexico, and Canada. It managed to reduce and eliminate tariffs on imports and exports between the three participating countries, which resulted in the creation of a huge free trade zone. So even though it seems like it's a great agreement that benefits the countries, it has its downs. As all things, not everything is perfect. But before we talk about the issue, let's talk more about the details of NAFTA. So NAFTA increases competitiveness of automakers that were doing business inside the US, eliminating key tariffs and made it possible automakers to open more manufacturing facilities in the US, Canada, and Mexico. This led to the creation of jobs for the three countries, and it also included the highest automotive origin requirements of any US trade agreement, these tripling exports of the US part suppliers to Mexico. So as you see, the automotive industry is one of the sectors that got most benefits. So with this agreement, it doubled the number of employees in the US and tripled the production in 2016. Automakers managed to manufacture about 12.2 million vehicles in the US, and also their values had more than tripled to $54 billion in 2016. All of these also led to the creation of big clusters in the US and Mexico. For example, in Mexico, the states of Chihuahua, Coahuila, the state of Mexico, Guanajuato, La Laguna, Nuevo León, Querétaro, San Luis Potosí, and Tlaxcala united efforts to form an organized network of automotive manufacturing clusters in Mexico. As you can see in the images, it shows all the states of the Mexican Republic that united to improve the manufacturing of vehicle parts. And also, as mentioned in the US, it also created a lot of clusters. So, and also I need to mention that in the Nuevo León cluster, the chief of that cluster, Cesar Jimenez, mentioned that right now they have a clear vision of boosting the competitiveness of automotive manufacturing clusters in the Guanajuato, Mexico area by creating productive linkage between private and government entities, as well as with academic institutions of industry research. So this means that they're trying to involve some government entities and as well link with institutions of industry research. But after talking about this, what's the issue? What's the issue in the story? Well, I talk about how the NAFTA agreement helps to improve the manufacturing of vehicle parts. But as I mentioned in the article, this agreement brought jobs to for the three countries, but it also took away some jobs from the US and passed them to Mexico. For instance, Mexican farmers were put out of business. Local farmers in Mexico who, because of the competence, their jobs couldn't compete with the subsidized prices. And as a result, these Mexican farmers have to move from their land and go and work in maquiladoras. And even though the NAFTA was meant to create high wage jobs in Mexico to decrease the immigration, the farmers end up having to work in very bad conditions and would cheaply assemble products for exports back in the United States. And not only the farmers will have to work in very bad conditions, but will have to work with a low wage. As it said, that these workers it is said that in the work sites of the maquiladoras were known for abusing worker rights. There are reports of work days lasting 12 hours or more, and women being subjected to pregnancy tests when they applied for jobs. So despite the poor conditions, most workers don't protest or complain because it is the only job that can give them support to eat and buy the essential things they need. Also, that some families depend on these jobs. So most workers prefer to keep working in these conditions, and well, they don't want to sacrifice a job that can keep their family alive. And so, as you can see, the NAFTA agreement, despite being an agreement to facilitate the trade of goods between the Canada, US, and Mexico, it also has negative impact on the jobs of not only the US but also the Mexican farmers. So, what can be done to reduce the negative impacts? But because if they change the NAFTA agreements, they are risking to sacrifice the the tariffs and restrictions of goods between the two countries. So it can lead to conflict between the three countries because uh, maybe not none of them will manage to get to an agreement. uh, but what can be done? So as I mentioned, maybe not stop the production, but change the impacts these things are having for the farmers. And well, the farmers that are working in these maquiladoras know that these problems can be ignored. And as mentioned, people are starting to notice and are demanding for changes for the workers that are being affected by these companies, foreign companies that are were brought from the US to Mexico. Uh, and they are looking for to reach an agreement for so they don't have to work for long hours for a low wage. Fortunately, each year the three countries, Canada, USA, and Mexico, have a meeting where they review the terms and agreements in the NAFTA, and the Mexican government should argue about these issues that the foreign factories are causing to the workers, so they can reach an agreement with the foreign companies that are from the USA, and have like reach agreements that can help the workers to work in better conditions and have better wages, so the workers can have a better treatment, and they can establish terms that the foreign companies have to follow. So if they don't follow these terms, there can be applied sanctions for the foreign companies and their operations in other countries. So with these actions, farmers can now have a better life quality, working regular hours and having a good salary that can bring a livelihood and welfare for his family and the rest of families of the workers. So I want to conclude that even though the free trade agreements are supposed to help the trade of goods between countries, sometimes these agreements will have their negative impacts. So it's up to the governments to always review the terms of these agreements, so they don't have to pass for problems like the ones I mentioned. And well, that's it. I hope you like it, and thank you so much for your attention.